A new report released by the United Nations Development Program, UNDP Nigeria, and the National Bureau of Statistics says that 20% of Nigeria's full-time workforce lost their employment during the 2019 COVID-19 pandemic as well as in 2020. The report, which assesses the impact of COVID-19 on business enterprises in the country, is based on in-depth interviews with almost 3,000 businesses from both the formal and informal sectors across major industries of the economy. While there have been promising signs of recovery this year, COVID-19 has had an outsized socio-economic impact on Nigeria. From disruptions in supply chains to ongoing supply and demand shocks and a drop in consumer confidence, these challenges are expected to leave lasting impact on the businesses and enterprises that make up the backbone of the economy. The report, The Impact of COVID-19 on Business Enterprises in Nigeria, also highlights the significant decline in revenue faced by enterprises and establishments across the country as a result of the pandemic. 81% of enterprises interviewed experienced a decline in revenue, and 73% stated that they faced liquidity challenges in 2020 due to the secondary impacts of the pandemic. The median loss in revenue reported remained at 44% compared to 2019 revenues. Developing countries have suffered disproportionately due to the socioeconomic fallout from the pandemic. Wealthier nations could afford to institute crippling lockdowns and restrictions necessary at times to arrest the spread of the virus and to support their populations so that they could stay home in an effort to limit community spread. Many developing countries, however, were often forced to rely on a mishmash of truncated measures to limit the fallout on populations already living in poverty or who rely on daily work for subsistence. There are around 41.5 million small and medium enterprises in Nigeria who contribute 48% of national GDP, account for 96% of businesses, and 84% of employment. Today, we'll be looking at how the Nigerian workforce fared during the pandemic. I'm Tolulokwe Adileru Balogun. Welcome. This is Business Edge. Joining me is Mukhtar Mohammed, financial analyst and the CEO of Astra Dynamics Solutions, a regular here for us on Business Edge. Mukhtar, welcome once again. Thank you for joining me today.
Always my pleasure to.
Many nations around the world, we saw them in some way give some kind of aid to small businesses and individuals in the form of incentives and money, cash. Absolutely. We also saw it with Kenya and South Africa that gave some tax breaks. And we saw a few things happen here in Nigeria in order to cushion the effects of the pandemic. What in particular did Nigeria do for businesses, and do you think it was enough?
So you said that you saw a few things. How few were those things? How many were those things? Because I didn't see much. I didn't even see few because what we saw in Nigeria was so little because of our structural challenges in terms of bureaucracy, in terms of data management, in terms of knowing which business really needed help. So that for me was a major challenge, not able to do very well in terms of helping the SMEs, especially because most of the data were not there in terms of return, and most of the SMEs also, some of them were just coming up maybe less than 5 years. And so it was a big challenge for government to really help and then know the type of help they need. Because if you look at this economy that you're talking about, it wasn't like the government were just throwing money at the problem. Government were tackling the root cause of the problem. Why do you have to sack? It's going to be because you cannot meet up in terms of your productive level to make more revenue or profit to be able to pay salaries. So governments decided that, okay, one of the ways we're going to help you SMEs is to make sure that some of these your staffs, how many can you employ? Then the next one, government takes those ones over and pay them for a period, and also see how they can help you in getting liquidity into your system. All this did not happen yet. What we saw here was government throwing money at a problem, not really knowing the depth of the problem.
So I think what I'm going to have to ask you now is, do you believe that there was really any support given to Nigerian businesses at all for their ability to survive the pandemic?
There was support, but I think it wasn't enough, like I said, because of the structural challenges. And then what business were we supporting and what data were we using to supporting some of these businesses. Because what we saw in Nigeria is if you know somebody, then your business will be supported by talking to that person, talking to those people involved to support your business. It wasn't like looking at the data, looking at the information, looking at what you ought to do and just go ahead to do it. It's all about who do you know that can talk to them, then they will support your business. I think that was basically what happened in Nigeria.
All right, so let's look at the numbers now. So the report says 20% of Nigeria's full-time workforce lost their employment during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. Currently, the country's unemployment figure stands at 33.3%, or about 23.2 million of the 70 or so million people who should be working in Nigeria are out of work. An acceptable level of unemployment for a country is supposed to be 4 to 6%. That in itself, the difference is staggering. So in terms of this 20%, particularly from this time period, where do they fall? Are they part of the overall 33.3%? Is it just something we should look at in terms of a time period? We shouldn't add them to the 33% of Nigerians that are unemployed. Mukhtar, I'm not trusting this smile that you're giving me. So where do we place this 20%?
You know why I'm smiling is that you were trying to ask me if this 20% is part of the 33% that are unemployed. I think you took that out of me. Exactly, I think they were not part of it. I want to add it to them. Then we have 53 point something percent, and then we have about 20 something percent that are underemployed. So you could say it's huge, and most of these unemployed youth fall in the bracket of the youth between the ages of 25 to 45. And so it's a huge challenge, I think, for the government and for Nigeria as a nation. And then addressing that again is not going to be easy because of the structural, like I said, political bureaucracy and other vices that are not helping us get to the root of addressing such challenges.
So we know that before the pandemic, Nigeria's economy was struggling. There was a recession in 2016. Then in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, Nigeria also plunged into another recession in less than 5 years, but the worst in about 4 decades. We recorded a gross domestic product contraction of 3.62% in the third quarter of 2020. But overall, the global economy suffered. So when you look at this 20% unemployment rate, do you think that's about right? Do you think it's more? Or do you think the number should actually, in fact, be lower, given what the circumstances of Nigeria was at the time we entered the pandemic?
It should be higher. It should be higher, Tolu. It should be higher. It's not supposed to be lower. It should be higher. Like I said, we always have problems with this data collection. Even from the National Bureau of Statistics, we've had a lot of challenges, and Nigerians have been asking, do they have a different country where they get their data from, especially when it comes to food price and everything. So it also applies to unemployment. Remember that in their data, they always have place for unemployment, underemployment, and also those that are not employed. So when you put all these data together, you realize that the employed Nigerians, if you want to go by it, are not more than 20%, because when you add underemployment and others into it, then you know where we stand. So I think it has to do with, like I said, has to do with data, has to do with how we collect our data. Because do we go to the rural area to see those that have finished secondary school that are not employed, or are we looking basically at graduates that are qualified to be employed that have not been employed? Those are things that they don't tell us when they do this data. So it's something that needs a closer view of it and a more robust statistical data for us to be able to say exactly where we are as a nation.
So let's look at some of the data that did come from this report. They found that 77% of business enterprises reported that they either reduced working hours or temporarily or permanently had to lay off workers. We have a situation of shrinkflation, as we call it now, that's reigning across the country. What can help Nigeria reverse this? Is it a situation of more liquidity, access to credit that have been issues even before the pandemic?
I think they are the two that you've just said, access to credit and liquidity. Yeah, I mean, those are the major challenges that they suffered even before the pandemic. Then the pandemic worsened it. So I think what we see, like I always say, for us to address this problem, even with SMEs, even with unemployment, we need to do the bottom-up approach, which is looking at the bottom line. What do they really need? What are those infrastructure that they need? What is majorly their challenge? It doesn't mean the up-down approach is for you to say, this is what you think they need. So we should be beginning to move from what we think they need to asking them, what do they really need to grow their business? What do they really need to have a buoyant business? What do they really need to employ more people? I think those are the questions the government should be asking them, then providing solutions for them. And in turn, those businesses will be able to pay tax. So it's a win-win situation for the government and for the businesses.
All right, Mukhtar, we're going to take a timeout. So when we come back, we'll look at how countries are reopening, the process to start rehiring, if that will change things, and even uncertainty that continues to plague businesses. We'll also touch on those who actually had positive gains during the pandemic, and we'll look at how that happened. That is part of the conversation that's going to come up right after this break. Stay with us. Still with me on Business Edge is Mukhtar Mohammed. He's the CEO of Astra Dynamic Solutions, and looking at a new report that says 20% of Nigeria's full-time workforce lost their jobs during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, Mukhtar, let's look at the opening up situation. Vaccines are rolling out, economies are reopening, countries are reopening as well. While it will take a time for us to get back to the pre-COVID-19 employment levels and economic activities, things do seem to be turning around. There are gaps to be filled. Do you think or expect that some of these businesses that manage to remain open will start the rehiring process, or will they wait to see how the economic conditions sort of pan out before they make these decisions?
I think some of them will wait, and some of them will wait, depending on their needs and how much those sectors have opened. Because, you know, even if sectors have opened, employees are beginning to look at means of saving costs these days. And because the COVID-19 pandemic have opened them to another reality that you don't need a big office space to thrive in business. People can work from the comfort of their home. That will reduce in terms of the stress level, especially in a city like Lagos, where you spend most of time going to work on traffic. So they are looking at that to reduce overhead. So definitely business will rehire, but we may not get people paying the kind of salary they used to pay to people before now. Maybe we get people paying base and base, you working from the comfort of your home. That will reduce the overhead cost, and also reduce the effect of office space also, whereby they will reduce costs gradually, and that will add to their bottom line. Then that will seem to grow their business. So depending on which space you have, but what I know is that business will not be like it used to be again, especially in the area of employment.
So let's talk about the uncertainty and probably the lack of confidence right now. 61% of enterprises expressed low confidence in relation to their outlook for the future. Their perception of their capacity to operate uninterrupted under the current circumstances was less than what they thought 1 year before the pandemic. What's your take on this? We talk a lot about investor confidence, but we also have to look at consumer confidence and the confidence of those who are running small and medium scale businesses in Nigeria.
Ask them that question, you go into details with them, they will tell you that majorly one of the challenges that they are facing, or could also could be the effects and challenges. That's why they are not optimistic about the future. Because when you look at SMEs, most SMEs are not locally dependent; they are foreign dependent in terms of their machines, in terms of the product, in terms of partnership. So I'm sure when you ask them deeply, if you go deep into that, you realize that 61% of them, when they say they don't hope so much of the future, they are looking in terms of sorting out these FX challenges, how they can assess FX not through the federal government own window, which have not been created for them, because as it stands, the federal government are only created one window that is easy for everybody to access. That is if you are the traveling space, the traveling window, if you are traveling and if you are paying school fees or medicals. When you come to small SMEs, when I mean small SMEs, I mean really small SMEs. I'm not talking of the big companies that need to be manufacturing companies that you're telling them to fill from M. I'm talking of small SMEs that need to do businesses as low as $5,000. How much and those also has to do with time. Time factor is also a huge thing when it comes to that. How much have we been able to address that? So I think that is where their pessimism comes from, not actually because they will not be able to grow their business, but because of access to FX. For me, I think that's where their pessimism comes from.
So unfortunately, this report has shown that 1 in 3 Nigerian business enterprises that were surveyed said they know of businesses that have permanently closed due to operational challenges resulting from the pandemic. This closure of these business enterprises, what do you think the implications are for Nigeria beyond adding to the unemployment figure?
I think, again, that is it lowers the productivity level of Nigerians also, because the productivity level is one thing. Why do we have government? Is to help you to be productive. Once the productive sector of the economy is not functioning very well, then it definitely affects the revenue base of the country. So we shouldn't be surprised where Nigerians are Nigerian government is looking for debt, because the productivity level is low, because there's no employment for people to be productive enough. And also, you pointed it out, also investment confidence, because like I said, some of these SMEs do business with foreign islands. And when these foreign companies begin to hear the challenges that they face and why they have not been in business, they are not encouraged to want to come and establish such business in Nigeria. So it's a big challenge for us as a country and for the government to be able to address this. And unfortunately, you don't have the wherewithal or the manpower or the resources to address those problems head on as it stands now.
So let's look at how we sort of mirrored some of the global movement towards e-commerce and direct distribution to consumers in order to reduce health risk and overcome some of the hurdles. 15% of businesses actually expanded either their products and services offered or their sales and distribution channels. Could the rise of e-commerce and online businesses really be a main driver for economic recovery beyond the pandemic for Nigeria?
Definitely, Tolu. That's the way to go. And that is why some of us were not happy when the government banned Twitter, and up to this moment, 100 and something days after, they've not reopened that space. So that is a big challenge, because that's how businesses are no more a mushroom business that wants to operate within only the comfort of your country or your home or your local government or your state. Businesses are thinking globally, because the world has become a global business where you can sell anything from any place to anybody at anywhere, different from where you are. So, and those are the platforms that have been provided, the technological platform, the Twitters of this world, the Facebook, the WhatsApp. I mean, those are what are really driving economical growth, especially for SMEs. So that is the way to go. But unfortunately, it's not looking nice for us because of government issues with Twitter. That has really reduced a lot, especially for our youth that are creative and not using Twitter as a means of advertising themselves to the outside world.
So following up on that, 19% of enterprises reported an increase in revenue, with higher proportions of enterprises in utilities, financial and insurance, as well as human and health services registering revenue gains over the course of the pandemic. So aside from the e-commerce side of things, what were the gains for the people in these particular industries? How did that come about?
Let's look at revenue. Let's look at revenue from the banks. But the banks are actually were the ones that really gained during that period. They have to come out a lot of product whereby you can do transaction from the comfort of your room, and they have been improving upon that thus far. If you look at health sector was the one that benefited more in terms of grant, because the pandemic, all it said was all about health. And then when you look at the service sector, and the service sector is a sector that never shut down. You look at eateries all around Lagos, what we begin to see was that they devise other means of delivering this product at your doorstep instead of you coming to their place to take it like it used to be. So all those were innovation that helped their growth, and these are day-to-day products that we definitely need to survive as human beings. So definitely those were not shut down completely. In reality, they were shut down. What was shut down was the space of the meeting where people miss themselves because of the pandemic. But the business itself were not completely shut down, because they created a platform in terms where you can ask for this business and they will be delivered at the comfort of your home.
Finally, Mukhtar, 20% of Nigerians that are employed in the workforce have lost their jobs because of this. Disruptions in supply chains, ongoing supply and demand shocks, drop in consumer confidence, challenges upon challenges and even secondary impacts as well. What do you think the lasting impacts of this particular COVID-19 outbreak and the restrictions and the lockdowns will be on Nigeria's economy?
Huge, Tulu, huge, very huge. We're already seeing it already in the FX space, the forex space already. We are seeing that playing out. We're seeing that playing out, like you said, in the unemployment rate. We see that play out in the productivity sector also. And also we are seeing that play down in the mental health of Nigerians. We mustn't forget that when you lost your job, it's not just about the job, the mental health side, that what comes with not being able to provide for the needs of your children or your family is a huge challenge. And those are things that are fundamentals to the growth of a society and also for the growth of a human being. So those challenges are there. They are very huge. You cannot quantify them in monetary terms, but it's something that we have to deal with. Like we'll say, and we'll keep saying, the pandemic has come as it is, and it has come to be with us for a while. Even if we are going to have solution to it, which I think we are gradually getting there, it will not be business as usual. There must be a change, and when it comes with change, it comes with a lot of pain. So I think Nigerians should be ready to bear the pain and also to embrace the change positively. And like you say, economic terms are all about perception. It's not that it's all about reality. Sometimes they could be reality, but perception tend to suppress reality. So we need to look at it that way and begin to see how we can own this economy and take opportunities that are available in this economic as a result of the COVID-19 pandemics.
All right. On that note, Mukhtar Mohammed, thank you. It's a pleasure as always having you on Business Edge. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Tolulokwe.
All right. So the numbers are out and the concern is rising. 20% of Nigeria's full-time workforce lost their jobs last year. Are we adding those to the 33.3% of Nigerians who are unemployed? What will be the financial and economic implications as the country continues to strive and struggle out of the impact of the pandemic? We'll keep our eyes on these developments as they happen in Nigeria. You're watching Business Edge. The next development is NC4 to watch. Do stay with us. And a few stories we're keeping our eyes on. We start in Nigeria, where the cost of filling a 12.5 kilogram cylinder of cooking gas in the country has increased from an average of 6,200 naira in July 2021 to 7,000 as of September 2021. This is a 13% increase in the price of the cooking gas. Now, several dealers and consumers have raised concerns over a progressive hike in the price of liquefied petroleum gas, commonly known as cooking gas, across major cities in Nigeria. South Africa, the world's 12th biggest emitter of greenhouse gases, said its total emissions will begin to decline in 2025 and disclosed that it is in talks to secure finance to transition to the use of more clean energy. The decline in emissions of climate-warming gases is a decade earlier than planned. It comes from the adoption of a tougher goal or nationally determined contribution ahead of the COP26 international talks. Ethiopia has asked the International Monetary Fund for new financing days after France and China co-chaired the first meeting of the nation's major creditors panel to rework the nation's previous debt. Setting up a creditors panel and an agreement on how to deal with Ethiopia's nearly $30 billion of external debt paves the way for the IMF to determine how to engage with the country on economic recovery. The lender's executive board has yet to approve disbursements from the Extended Credit Facility and Extended Fund Facility, the former which has expired despite reaching staff-level agreements. And staying in the region, Kenya and Ethiopia have signed a deal for a free trade area, seeking to enhance cross-border trade and movement of people. The two countries signed the Moyale One-Stop Border Post Procedure Manual. Now, this is an operational guide that is expected to give them a competitive edge with regard to goods traded. The deal seeks to encourage small-scale traders by developing a simplified framework to facilitate their business activities at the border. That's today's show. You know that you can find us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can also be a subscriber on our YouTube channel and look at any of the programs you may have missed. Look for us on our App Store or, of course, the Play Store. Download the mobile app and take us with you wherever you go. Until next time, I'm Tolu Lokwe Adileru Balogun.